Hey you, like the video and subscribe. Also, if you want to see this live, come to Twitch. That Figure It Out Productions. We're live Fridays and Saturdays, mostly in the evenings, sometimes Sundays. Come say hi. Moving on to second base, this is a card that I've used a little bit, but I really liked what I used, and it's this 83 Topps Now Ty France. He's kind of interesting because you can also play him at first and third. I'd play him at second, really. I'd also recommend maybe at first because he is kind of slow. But I think at second base, the hitting stats are really good, especially at that position. And if you parallel him enough, the power will be over 80. And with 96 contact versus right, and even potentially mid 70s versus left, it's not too bad, especially out of a Topps Now card that is a gold. And so I highly recommend Ty France. Another option that I have currently is this David Fletcher. You can play him at third and short, and honestly, he'd work at those positions anyways too. So you can play him at those three. I think David Fletcher really works. His swing is a little glitchy. I wouldn't say it's like super glitchy. The 50 power is a little bit modest, especially because you can definitely hit it out of the park with him. The contact is really nice. He's definitely a gaps hitter. The 60 speed is a little bit slow especially for a mostly contact guy. Most of the time you're getting doubles anyways at this point, especially with the defense and the contact. David Fletcher is a pretty solid option, especially because you can get him for free through the AL West Team Infinity. A couple other 42 cards that you can get is this Keston Hiura. His power versus and contact versus right are amazing. The defense is kind of whatever, but the speed is okay, especially at second. I wish he had a secondary position at first base because that's what he's been playing primarily this year, so really has only played second up until this year. His swing is also pretty glitchy. Versus righties, he's going to be mashing the ball. Versus lefties, he actually probably won't be that bad, especially because he is a right-handed bat, so I highly recommend that as well. The other guy, which I recommend playing at second, you can play him at short or play him at third. He's got fielding attributes that would work there. I just think that with his arm, it'll probably fit better at second base, but his swing is just amazing, and that's Bo Bichette. His contact versus right and left is great. Superfractor, his power versus left goes up to 80, which breaks that threshold, and then even the power versus right isn't too bad, but like I said, his swing's pretty glitchy, so you're going to run into it pretty decently. And then the next card is a card I actually haven't used myself yet, but I have a friend who's been using him and he really likes him. So, and I trust his authority, so I will shout him out as well, which is this 84 Michael Busch that you can get through the Conquest map. His hitting stats actually look pretty solid. His power, you could want a little bit higher, but they're actually not too bad, especially his contact. You probably won't find much better for free or cheap at second base. And his fielding's okay. His speed's pretty solid, so if you hit him more in the gaps, you'll definitely get the doubles that you want. Defense, again, is okay, but you can honestly play him at the positions he has, which is second, first, left, and right. You can play him at either one of those, and he'd probably be fine. It won't be fantastic, but he'll definitely be okay. So recommend him if you want to get a free card. Moving on to third base. This one is the one that I kind of had the most back and forth with because it's not the cheapest card, and it's also a card that you look at and kind of go, well, duh, it's a good card. And that's Josh Donaldson. I agree that it is kind of a duh. You have to understand that this card is really good. I have him at parallel 3. I've been using him online and versus CPU, and online I think he's my second best hitter, maybe even my best hitter on a team that I have really decent cards, and I think he's probably one of the worst, like just overall for the number, I think. But overall, hitting wise, his swing's really glitchy. His defense is really solid. The 54 speed is fine, especially because he's hitting it out of the park most of the time anyways. And if you get him to parallel 4, which I'm pretty close, you can get 80 power versus left, and then that basically solves your main attribute problems, really. He is 30,000 stubs, which can make or break it for you. That's why I recommend him. He's my number one pick, but he's also there's also like he's like 1A, and there's like a 1B for someone that you don't want to spend an exorbitant amount of stubs on, which 30,000 can be a lot, especially if you're doing no money spent. The next one I want to point out is a secondary position card, and it's this Marco Luciano. You can play him at short, and he'd be fine. I just think he plays a little bit better at third base because I think there's just better shortstops, and he has the power to play third. He honestly has hitting stats comparable to Josh Donaldson. I know his contact's a little bit worse, but his power is about the same, if not better, versus left. I highly recommend him. He's about 16,000, give or take, where you're going, but on average he'll be about 16,000, and He was available in the Space 2 pack. Like I said, you won't be able to get that now, but on the market, he's not too bad, and I'm sure the pack will come back eventually. I really like this card. His swing is pretty solid, and yeah. The next card I want to talk about is this Willie Adames. You can play him, again, at the other positions he has. I just think at third base, he's probably best suited because the defense is still going to be silver. He has really great arm strength, so that could really work. Shortstop would also work great because he still has that gold fielding. There's just a little bit better shortstops. That being said, his hitting stats are really solid. Contact versus left is a little left to be desired. I think with the power and the contact versus right and the somewhat glitchy swing, it's not amazing, but you'll definitely find his groove pretty easily. You can't really complain about the attributes there. The next one is a guy that I haven't really used a whole lot, but I saw on Twitter that people were really liking him and that he's a good gap hitter, which is this Brian Hayes. With the 71 speed and the mid-80s contact, like I've seen on Twitter, you're definitely going to get him in the gap. Those doubles, depending on where they're landing, can possibly become triples, especially with the 71 speed, but consistent doubles is really solid. The power you can definitely find better at third, but I think with the defense at diamond, it's going to be hard to find that synergy. Picking one or the other, I think defense and solid gap hitting would be great. Again, it's all about preference, really, these cards. You don't even have to live by this list. I think this game is really good about if you like a certain card, you can keep using them and it'll be really good for you. The next card on the list is this 83 Brett Beatty, and honestly, I haven't used him yet, but with the arm strength, the speed, and the defense, he can fit really well at third. You can play him at first too, which is also a plus, but I think the real plus about him is the power. The contact is a little low, but out of an 83 gold, it is what it is. They're going to have their rough spots, but I think with the power versus left and right, 80 and higher, you can use them in ranked and actually run into a couple home runs. Are you going to hit for contact constantly? Not necessarily, but you'll really like where this card can get you.